As a brand, Lectric is known for making value-packed e-bikes, and this is their latest offering, the XPress 750. It's got a powerful 750-watt rear hub motor, promises up to 60 miles of range, and has 80 millimeters of travel in the front suspension fork. I've been riding it for about a week now, and I've got some thoughts to share, so stick around and let's take a deep dive into the new Lectric XPress 750. So the XPress 750 is a commuter bike, and it's a class 3, meaning it can get to 28 miles an hour in pedal assist, and it has a throttle on it. The MSRP is $1,299, and it is UL 2849 and UL 2271 certified. As far as weight goes, they advertise this bike as weighing 57 pounds. The one we got here for testing, we threw it up on the scale, and without the battery, it was 58.4 pounds, and once you threw the battery in the bike, it was 66.5 pounds. Now the payload capacity, or the total weight for the bike, is 330 pounds. That's with rider and gear included. And it comes in two frame configurations. Here we have the high step, but there's also a step through that does not have this top crossbar and a lower access point for getting on and off. Now the fit for each of these, the fit for the high step is from 5'4" up to 6'4", and for the step through version, it's 5'2" up to 6'3". Now both will come in either white or black. As you can see, we have the black here. And some geometry numbers for this specific high step is a 29-inch standover height. The saddle can be moved from 33 up to 45 inches. The wheelbase from rear hub to front hub is 45 inches, and the reach up top is about 24 inches. Now, when it comes to tires and wheels, they went with a 27.5-inch wheel. It's a black alloy wheel, and the tire they went with was the Sun, and it's a 2.1, so 27.5 by 2.1 inch tire, and that's got a nice commuter tread pattern on it. Now, they do not have any fenders or racks included with the bike, but there's several mounting option points should you want to add some gear. You've got mounting options for a rear rack, as well as front rack or front accessories along the fork and up top. And then you have 3 bosses or mounting points on this tube, and then 2 more on the underside of the top tube. So regardless of what kind of gear you want to put on the bike, you've got several mounting points to get that done. And for lighting on this, they did include front and rear lighting. Up front, we have an LED light. They didn't list the lumens on it, but it is pretty bright. It can be used both to be seen during the daytime and really help you see at night when you're riding your bike. It also has a rear taillight here that's integrated into the bike's wiring that will act as a taillight and a brake light. Now, when it comes to the motor on this is the more powerful version. There's also an XPress 500 that's been released as well. That's a little bit cheaper at $999, so if you don't want a full 750 watts, you can opt for the 500 watt version. But regarding this 750 watt motor, that's nominally 750 watts, but it can peak at up to 1,310 watts, which is pretty substantial, and it's got 85 Newton meters of torque. Now, this is activated through a torque sensor, and it uses what they call their PWR Plus technology, which basically is programming for this torque sensor to have a bit more oomph when you're riding, and it also will control your speeds at each PAS level along the way. So you're not just running up to 28 miles in PAS 1, you'll kind of have some thresholds for each PAS level, and I think it's tuned pretty well. The bike is very peppy riding around town. It's got plenty of power on hills, and this is the kind of bike, if you live in a very hilly area or you just like going a little bit quicker on your rides than most folks, the 750 would probably be the way to go. This is a pretty fun motor to have, and with the throttle, just gets around town no problem. Now, powering this is the bike's battery. It's a 48 volt battery, 14 amp hours, giving us 672 watt hours of power. Now, this has a 24 amp controller, and this battery came with a key that you can lock the battery in place or remove it. I'll kind of show you how that works now. So we've got a key that came with the bike here. The key hole is on this opposite side. I'll put that in, and when I turn the key, you'll see the battery drop just a bit, and it's not fully released yet. There is a button right here in the center you'll want to push in, and that will fully release the battery, and then you can pull it out. Again, this is UL 2271 certified, and it weighs around 7 pounds. And as far as warranty goes, the battery and the whole bike has a 1-year warranty that just comes included with the price of purchase of the bike. Now, to put it back in, I will put the bottom in first, and then just click the top in, and you're good to go. Now, when it comes to range on this, they say you can get up to 60 miles on a single charge. We hit the streets in this, and on PAS1, the lowest level, we got 52 miles, and on PAS5, we got 21 miles. So 50 and 21, depending on how fast you're going, is plenty of range for most folks. And while it fell short of 60 miles, it got pretty close, and I think with this higher power motor, it's just gonna have more battery drain than usual. So when it comes to components on the Express 750, they went with a 7-speed Shimano drivetrain. Specifically back here, we have a 7-speed Shimano Tourney rear derailleur, and that's got an 11 to 28 teeth rear cassette. Up front, we have a 46-tooth chainring with a nice chain guard on it, and they added a Lectric branded kind of a chain slap guard to protect the paint on your chain stays, which is kind of nice. The cranks are 170 millimeter alloy cranks, and the pedals are platform pedals that, as you can see, are easily removable thanks to quick release connections on them. They also have some studs for grip and reflectors for visibility, and they're easy to take on and off, which is really cool. Now, when it comes to brakes, they went with hydraulic disc brakes with 180 millimeter rotors and 2-piston calipers, both front and back. Now, the thickness on those rotors is 1.8 millimeters. And as far as branding goes on these brakes, they are unbranded, but I can tell you all week long riding the bike, kind of going up hills, down hills, traffic, paths, the brakes have been great, no complaints at all. I just can't speak to reputation or longevity, but all in all, as far as performance and capability, good to go. This whole week I've been riding the bike. Now, moving up to the saddle. Now up here in the saddle, they went with a kind of a wide cushion saddle, not super wide, as I'd say it's about that wide there. And then it narrows up in the front for pedaling. And I found it to be really comfortable all week, no complaints there. And saddles, if you ever find one you like better, it's easy to swap for you. Now, moving up to the suspension fork, it is a TC80 suspension fork that has a nice through axle support down at the front hub, and it's got 80 millimeters of travel that you can use on your rides. Does a really nice job of eating up bumps in the road, potholes, things like that. Or if you don't want it, or you're doing something different where you don't think the fork's going to help you, you can lock it out by twisting this red knob up top, and that will lock out the fork. And you can bring it back by simply just twisting it back the other way, and you've got your suspension back. Now let's talk about the cockpit itself. So if I had to pick one thing that kind of drove me a little bit crazy when I was riding this bike, and that was the choice of putting the throttle on the right-hand side underneath. Usually, most bikes I ride, my personal bikes, and a lot we get in here for testing, down here in this position is kind of intuitively a trigger shifter in my mind, as most throttles are usually on the left-hand side. So I did find myself constantly going to throttle when I thought I was shifting, when in fact the index shifters are actually up top here. And it's a bit more of a conscious movement with your thumb to get up to this higher level of shifter. But all in all, after a few minutes, you don't really think about it and it becomes more natural. It is just something to be aware of. We see most throttles on the left-hand side, and this one just did mentally confuse me a little bit, but it didn't impact performance or capability. Now, the bar itself is a black alloy bar, and it is 660 millimeters wide. Both sides have lock-on ergonomic rubber grips that are really comfortable, good rest for your hand. Over here, we have the Shimano index shifter and the throttle, as well as your brake levers on both sides. On this side here, we have the PAS control buttons and power button. And in the center is the electric color display. As far as wiring goes, there's a lot of wires obviously coming off here, but they did a pretty decent job of wrapping most of these and consolidating them and then running them down into the frame. So you got a little bit up top, but they've done their best as far as managing those wires with these wraps. So let's go ahead and take a closer look at the display. All right, so for the display, we have this centrally mounted electric color display. You turn it on by just hitting the power button on the left side, and that will give you basically the only screen you're going to be using when you're riding the bike. Now up top, we've got a battery bar indicator, as well as a wattage output indicator when you're pedaling. Here in the center, we have a speed that can be changed between miles per hour or kilometers per hour. Down here, we have our current PAS level. So as we go up and down in the PAS buttons, that will change. Down here, we have an odometer, but should you want different metrics here on the bottom, you hit the power button once. That will change it to a trip meter. Hitting it again will change it to the current voltage. Hitting it again, current, and then one more will be the current time that the bike's been on for this specific iteration. And then hitting it again will take it back to the odometer. Now, there are some advanced settings you can access by holding the plus and minus buttons. Just be forewarned, these are going to require the manual because they have just codes that you need to navigate to change. So So definitely check the manual when you go through here, but just know that should you decide to change some of the more advanced settings, you just need to do that by pressing plus and minus. So no real crazy things going on with the display, but all the basic info you need in a nice high contrast color display that really shows up well even in direct sunlight. And there's no dedicated app for this bike. So all in all your controls will be right here, but it's very straightforward and easy to use. I'm gonna go ahead and grab my helmet. We're gonna take this for a ride, and then we'll go meet up with Ben, our mechanic, and get his thoughts on the XPress 750. All right, we're out here on the XPress 750, and the riding position when you get on this bike is pretty typical of a commuter bike, right? So you've got a flat bar with a slight rise to it, so you're definitely not upright like a cruiser, and you're not all hunched over like you would be like on, say, a road bike. You're kind of in a bit of a hybrid mountain bike-ish position that's just kind of naturally comfortable. Your hands fall onto these ergonomic platform grips, and intuitively it just kind of fits the way you sit down and rest your hands. Comfort-wise, the bike is very comfortable. I think the seat has a lot to do with it. This seat doesn't really get a lot of talk. It's unbranded. There's nothing special about the look or the manufacturer. It's just really comfortable, and one of the better parts is it's narrow enough in the center that you can still pedal well, and it doesn't really detract from the pedaling experience, but you get a lot of comfort in the saddle area. Complementing that, obviously, is the suspension fork up front, which I did go over some curbs on this ride and a couple speed bumps, and it eats it up really well. All the big impacts, it just handles them nicely. Little bumps in the road like this, you might get a little benefit from it as well, but all in all, it's always nice to have a fork up front. There is 80 millimeters of travel, and it has a lockout if you don't feel like using it, so that's always a good option as well. Now, speed and motor-wise, this has the 750 watt motor, which you guys know about, 1310 peaking watts, 750 nominally, and it can be class 2 or class 3. So they've used their PWR Plus programming on this torque sensor, which essentially is going to allow it to peak at that 1310, but also regulate speed at each PAS level. So for example, let's slow down here. Let's go to PAS 1. And I don't know if you guys can see it on camera, but that screen, even in direct sunlight, is still really easy to see, which is nice. But enough of that. So here we are, PAS 0 going 8 miles an hour. I'll turn on level 1. And I'll just use throttle so we can get like a consistent number. And here that's capped at, looks like 9 miles an hour. So we'll go PAS 2. And you can hear that creep up a little bit. And now we're at 15. PAS 3. And that stopped at 20, but that could be the throttle itself. So let's pedal. (21), PAS 4, 25, PAS 5, and we're right there to 28 miles an hour. So let's do up this hill here. Yeah, that screamed up the hill, 22 miles an hour. Let's do a little bit of the throttle and see how long it takes to go from a stop up to 20. Just see that speed of the throttle. 3, 2, 1, go. Oh, just kidding. 3, 2, 1, go. All right, we're off. 10, 15, 20. So good time on the throttle response. If you can tell, you can hear the motor. It's not a loud motor, but it's definitely louder than the 500 watt version. I've rode that one as well, and that one is virtually silent. This one has a little bit of motor whine to it, pretty typical for a 750. It's got more power, more juice, more wattage. It's working harder, it's making a little bit more noise, but it's not overly loud, which is good. Let's check out these brakes. So 180 rotors, hydraulic disc brakes, 180 front and back with 2 piston calipers. Let's get up to about 20. And we'll go ahead and hit the brakes. 3, 2, 1. Nice. So the brakes feel good. They've got a little bit of modularity in them, so you can kind of control how hard you're braking within the stop, which is nice. And so that motor with these brakes and these slick tires, it's just a quick moving, get around town, get across campus, get to work, or even go for a casual ride like this on your trails in your town. It's just a smooth riding, pretty easy bike to handle. And yeah, all in all, it's a really good package for the price. And if you're looking for something that's a little bit commuter, or a lot of commuter, but a little bit capable in other areas, this is a solid option. But let's go talk to Ben and get his thoughts on it from a mechanic standpoint. All right, guys, we're back with Ben, and he's going to give us his thoughts on the Lectric XPress 750, specifically things he likes and maybe some areas he would improve. Ben, before you jump into that, thank you again to Feedback Sports for providing us with their Pro HD aluminum rack. It's always stable, secure, works really well, even with these heavier e-bikes, and they have a full lineup of tools that we use as well, and we've had nothing but good things so far. So if you guys want to check those out, I'll put a link in the description. And Ben, I'm going to step out of the way and let you do your thing, but just kick it off with what you kind of like about this bike.
All right, Mike, thanks. So with this Lectric 750, there's a few things that I really like. One in particular is going to be the through axle that's also got a lever. Okay, so it's the best you can get between a quick release and the strength of a through axle. Easy to remove whenever you've got to change the brake rotor, change the tire or the inner tube. This just makes it super easy. But it's strong enough on the front end, so you pair that with a threadless steer tube and a nice threadless stem, you get a lot of front end stability and strength out of this thing. Also with the threadless stem, this is just the sort of thing that every bike shop will have in stock. So if ever you want to change to something longer, something with a higher rise, very easy to do that. I love that part about this bike. Also with that, I've mentioned it on a couple of the other ones, but these pedals are pretty awesome because you can just release them super easy if you're traveling with the bike, to take them and make it easier to put in the back of your car. Let's just say you lose this pedal. Let's just say something is damaged. You can simply unscrew this piece from the crank arm and just thread in a standard 9/16 spindle pedal, which is basically what every pedal spindle is these days. So gosh, I really like that about these bikes. Above and beyond that, it's just a nice, clean, simple design, very easy to ride, feels great. The other thing that I do like about these bikes is they're using more of a standard spoke diameter and spoke nipple, so easier to find tools for this at most bike shops without having to use a sub-level quality universal type. So as a mechanic, those are the things that I really like about this bike, Mike.
Nice, man. And what kind of things would you improve if you redid something like this?
Great question. So with this one, one thing I'd like to see is more on these bikes, because they do tend to sit outside. Maybe they're not stored inside all the time. These chains, if you can get, rather than just a standard steel chain, if you get a zinc coated, which will be a silver in color kind of chain, that just means less rust, less corrosion, that sort of thing. So I'd like to see that. They're not that much more expensive. Also, the seat rail clamp system on this bike is one that's similar to what came on my 1987 Schwinn Predator. Fast forward to 2024, a lot of companies are using something referred to as a micro adjust, which is easier to adjust and also stronger. It'd be nice to see something like that on here. Also with this bike, the seat post and the frame are different diameters. So there is an aluminum shim or sleeve in the frame to allow it so that the seat posts fit. How do they solve that? Well, either get a different seat tube, inner diameter, or just a bigger diameter seat post. So it does away with that aluminum shim. It tends to flex, and it may allow the seat post to move side to side a little bit. There's not a long list of things that I would recommend they consider or changing, but that's what I've got, Mike.
All right, nice, man. Once again, man, appreciate you taking the time to come out of your garage and give us a hand.
All right, thanks, guys.
So that's the Lectric XPress 750. It's got a very powerful and punchy 750 watt motor with those 85 Newton meters of torque. It gave us good range results, and it's got a solid suspension fork up front. It's going to be a great option for those of you who commute, casual riders, or just somebody who wants a powerful e-bike from a reputable company, but at a really good price point of that $12.99. And remember, if you're not looking for something punchy, but you like this look and design and features, they've always got the Express 500, which is still the same bike with just a slightly dialed back motor. So you've got some good options either way, and that one comes in at $9.99. So hopefully you guys found this review helpful. If you haven't done so already, consider liking and subscribing to the channel. And until next time, I'll see you guys out on the trail.